The first scene features a handsome boy named Cha Jin-wook who is partying and clubbing with pretty girls. As the son of a wealthy father, he is somewhat mean and selfish. His father, Lee Min, is a chairman of a famous company called Daebak Group. Then, we are introduced to a middle-class college girl named Lee Yumi, who is also partying at the same club. After a few shots, she heads to the restroom where she spots Jin-wook and a girl making out. Yumi waits for them to finish, but she decides she can't wait any longer, so she pushes them and rushes inside. The next day, Lee Min, as usual, learns that his son has been involved in yet another scandal. Fed up with Jin-wook's carelessness, he cuts his allowances, freezes his cards, and sends him to work as a bellhop at one of their hotels as punishment. Jin-wook is devastated that his freedom is being taken away, but nonetheless, he obliges without saying anything. Later, he boards a bus to reach his new workplace. Surprisingly, Yumi also gets on the same bus. It is revealed that she is being forced to attend her mother's second wedding. On the bus, the situation between Jin-wook and Yumi becomes awkward when she falls on his lap by accident. A few hours later, they arrive at the hotel, and Jin-wook is forced to dress as a bellhop by his father's secretary. Despite this, he maintains his arrogant demeanor and continues ordering his co-workers around. Meanwhile, Yumi meets her mother Gina, who is shocked to see her dressed as a Grim Reaper. She scolds Yumi and tells her to change into something more attractive. Gina also forces her to pat her bra in order to enhance her appearance. During the wedding ceremony, everyone begins gossiping after learning that the bride is a former erotic actress. This upsets Yumi as she recalls her painful past when she used to get bullied because of her mother's profession. Unable to bear all the chatter, she runs away from the wedding hall and accidentally collides with Jin-wook, who is bringing in the wedding cake. She trips and falls to the floor alongside him. Embarrassed, Yumi runs to her room, while Jin-wook is chastised for ruining the wedding cake. Later, Jin-wook heads over to Yumi's room to apologize, but the two get into an argument instead. While storming out, he inadvertently drops the car keys that he had just stolen from his father's secretary. Following this, Yumi decides to take a bath while enjoying her favorite wine, but unfortunately, she slips and falls. Jin-wook, who returns to retrieve his car keys, hears the noise and bursts into the room to aid her, only to discover her unconscious. He then quickly carries her outside. However, Yumi appears to be acting. She isn't hurt, she only wants the attention. When Jin-wook discovers this, he berates her for her childish behavior, making her upset. The next day, Jin-wook drives to his mother's hotel and anonymously leaves a bouquet of flowers, wishing her a happy birthday. On his way back, he passes Yumi, who is waiting for her bus to head home. He pulls over and offers her a ride, claiming that the bus won't be arriving anytime soon. Seeing the bellhop all dressed up and riding an expensive car, Yumi assumes he is a thief who's stolen someone's car. Regardless, she accepts his offer and joins him. On their way, a seemingly sad Jin-wook stops at the beach. Yumi, who is also feeling low, joins him and the two share their loneliness over wine. During their conversation, her eyes well up, and Jin-wook consoles her by saying that she's the first person he has found beautiful while crying. Hearing this, Yumi starts to hiccup nervously, which he finds even cuter. This overwhelms his heart and he can't stop himself from kissing her. Yumi hesitates only for a moment before kissing him back. Eventually, they end up making love in the car. Yumi awakens the next morning, shocked to realize what she did last night. In order to hide her embarrassment, she grabs her clothes quietly and runs out of the car. 3 years later, we see Yumi, who has become mature and responsible. Currently, she works as a school nutritionist. One day after her shift, she meets up with her friends and informs them that the next day she will start working as a nutritionist at Daebak Group's cafeteria, which surprises them. Elsewhere, Jin-wook has also evolved from a clumsy playboy to a hardworking CEO of Daebak's group. Due to his heavy workload, he invests no time to eat or care for his health. The following day at work, Jin-wook is in the middle of a meeting when he faints due to his unhealthy lifestyle and ends up in the hospital. Because of the incident, his secretary, Jong, assigns the recently hired Yumi to coordinate the CEO's 3 meals and mealtimes. She agrees, but her cooking doesn't seem to appeal to Jin-wook, so he refuses to eat, stating that it's worse than dog food. Yumi gives it her all, but each time she fails and is made to do it all over again. After a few stressful days at work, she visits her male best friend, Hyun-tae, who is a writer and restaurant owner. One day at work, Yumi notices the food she prepared being thrown away without even tasting it. Heartbroken and angry, she heads to Jin-wook's office to complain. When she can't find him, she asks an employee to relay the message to him. At the same time, Jin-wook walks in and seems surprised to see Yumi. Later, Jin-wook is in his cabin when he is reminded of the embarrassing moment he had in the past involving Yumi. It is revealed that when she ran away from the car, a group of women mocked him, saying that he must be really bad if he made a girl run away. This humiliated Jin-wook so much that now he decides to exact his vengeance. To make her work more difficult, Jin-wook instructs his secretary to hand her a list of ingredients and order her to prepare the food accordingly. Days pass and Jin-wook continues to give her a hard time, complaining about the food and rejecting it every time. The poor girl has no idea she is being punished for something she did in the past. Moreover, she is oblivious that she is working for Jin-wook. At one point, Yumi becomes so frustrated that she sends a curse message to the CEO, but not long after, she comes to her senses and rushes to his office to apologize. As soon as she enters his cabin, she is astounded to see Jin-wook as the CEO. In the next few days, the torture escalates. The more Yumi tries to avoid Jin-wook, the more he forces her to be around him by making her personally hand-deliver his every meal. Jin-wook never misses a chance to tease her and remind her of the past. Not only this, but he also demands she return his coat, which she ran away in. After enduring all this for a long time, Yumi finally bursts into a rage, claiming that she threw away his coat. She also chastises him for treating her like a maid and orders him to eat whatever she makes without being so picky. Jin-wook did not expect this kind of reaction from her, and before she storms out, he asks her why she ran away that day. Yumi simply says it was just a one-night stand and leaves. Jin-wook is devastated to hear this because he truly loved and cared for her. He even kept her bra pad in a special box as a memory of the night that they had spent together. Later that day, Yumi regrets her actions and worries about being fired. However, the exact opposite happens. Surprisingly, she receives a compliment on her meal. One day, Yumi goes to deliver Jin-wook's lunch, and upon entering his cabin, she witnesses him with a famous news anchor named Hairi, whom she believes is his new girlfriend. Yumi is slightly disappointed to see them together, but grateful, thinking she will no longer have to worry about the past. The next day, Hairi pays a visit to the cafeteria and instructs Yumi to inform her of what she plans to prepare for Jin-wook. She also provides her with special utensils and crockery to use while serving him the food. A short while later, Jin-wook shows up and indirectly insults Hairi by asking her not to interfere with the matters of his personal nutritionist. After saying this, he takes Yumi to a restaurant where he orders some food. He lets her try some and then asks her to prepare his meal the same way. Hairi, on the other hand, is enraged, but she is not the type of person who gives up so easily. In the next scene, Gina returns to Yumi's place with a young man after divorcing her second husband. Yumi doesn't want to share her apartment with him, but she has no other choice. One night, she gets bored at home and heads outside to the streets. There, she runs into her best friend, Hyun-tae, and the two go for a night ride. While enjoying some fresh air in the park, a beautiful girl hits on Hyun-tae, but he pretends Yumi is his girlfriend. After the girl leaves, Yumi asks why he did so, to which he replies that she is more beautiful than any other girl. Here, we learn that Hyun-tae has a secret one-sided crush on Yumi. The next day, Jin-wook returns from a business trip and immediately calls Yumi. He asks her to come over to his place and cook dinner. Yumi, who is looking after her younger stepbrother, has no choice but to take him along with her. After reaching Jin-wook's place, she prepares sandwiches with the ingredients available in the kitchen. Just then, she hears a noise from upstairs. Yumi rushes upstairs only to discover that her stepbrother has broken Jin-wook's special box. Terrified, she places the broken box as it was and leaves before the CEO finds out about it. After a while, Jin-wook arrives and looks for her around the place. But when he realizes that she has already left, he becomes very upset. The following day, Yumi prepares a hearty lunch for Jin-wook as an apology for his special box. However, she lacks the courage to confess the truth. Jin-wook finds the decorated lunch cute, but he keeps his emotions hidden. Later, he is working late at home when he discovers a soft toy inside his study, followed by the broken special box. This makes him very concerned as he wonders if Yumi has opened it. Being unable to relax, he calls her and meets her outside her house. Jin-wook then makes accusations and demands to know the truth. But at the same time, Hyun-tae shows up and poses as her boyfriend, leaving him devastated. Jealousy begins to burn in his heart. Meanwhile, Yumi questions Hyun-tae about why he did so, but he is still hesitant to confess his feelings for her. That night, Jin-wook and Yumi reminisce about the good times they had in the past. The next day at work, Jin-wook's mind is filled with questions about Yumi's boyfriend. He goes to extreme lengths to insult her in order to satisfy his ego. Regardless, she does not answer his questions and simply states that her personal life is not his concern. Yumi is also perplexed by his behavior because she is unsure of his relationship with Hairi. As days pass, Jin-wook finds the meals more appealing, but he doesn't want to compliment her. Instead, he forces Yumi to prepare the meals multiple times. Despite his full stomach, he consumes the meals, aided by various digestive pills. Jin-wook also pulls a variety of stunts in order to prevent her from seeing Hyun-tae. After serving the dinner several times, Yumi is about to leave, but like a hungry ghost, he again appears and demands instant noodles. Keeping her anger under control, Yumi prepares the instant noodles and goes to serve him. However, she forgets to bring the trivet for the hot noodle pot. She's about to return, but Jin-wook stops her and places Hyun-tae's novel on the table as a trivet. After witnessing this, she realizes he is jealous of her best friend. Despite this, Yumi remains silent and decides to leave, but he orders her to stay until he finishes eating. She becomes uneasy when he comes closer to her. Once more, Yumi blurts out that he makes her uncomfortable and that she wants to forget everything from the past. Yumi's life is made even more difficult by her mother's eccentric behavior because she still wants to work in adult movies. She can't find peace at work or at home. One night, Yumi is sitting alone in the park and drinking for the first time in 3 years. A few moments later, Hyun-tae approaches her and inquires about the matter. She tells him about her mother and the stress she is causing her. After talking for a while, a drunk Yumi places her head on Hyun-tae's shoulder, confusing him. Yumi's struggles don't end yet, as she is assigned to prepare a meal for Hairi's team, who is there to interview Jin-wook. She tries her hardest to make a nutritious lunch, but the witchy Hairi orders the meal from a hotel on purpose, just to humiliate Yumi. All of the employees go to Hairi's meal, squandering Yumi's efforts. This makes her upset, and she apologizes to Jin-wook for not being able to serve the guests. The latter feels really bad for not being able to protect her emotions and hard work. In the next scene, we see Jin-wook has been hospitalized due to excessive eating. When Yumi learns of this, she is concerned, so she pays him a visit at the hospital and takes care of him. They also have a private conversation in which he clarifies her misconception, saying that he is not in any kind of relationship with Hairi. After this, Yumi also clarifies that Hyun-tae is only a good friend to her, which relieves him. A few days later, Jin-wook wakes up fine, and before leaving the hospital, his secretary informs him about how Yumi stayed up all night and took care of him. However, Jin-wook acts indifferent, but on his way home, he imagines Yumi kissing him while he is asleep. Jin-wook is back to work, and like before, he wants Yumi by his side, spending time with her as if they were on a secret date. For this, he devises a solution and instructs her to have meals with him to compensate for his hospitalization because of eating her food. Initially, she hesitates, but eventually agrees because she doesn't want to lose her job. For their first dinner, she takes him to an ordinary restaurant to try some healthy soup. At first, he is hesitant to go because he will have to sit on the floor, but on her insistence, he agrees. Upon arriving there, Yumi tells Jin-wook to wear an apron, but he refuses, and his arrogance causes him to ruin his clothes. When she notices this, she stands up to clean his shirt, but he coldly asks her not to touch him, even though he likes it. On their way back, Yumi inquires about his mother, and Jin-wook emotionally responds by telling her about his parents' divorce when he was a child. He also reveals that he never got to know his mother. Later, after departing, Yumi feels bad, wondering if she made him upset by asking about his mother. At another meal, Jin-wook uses work as an excuse to spend time with Yumi. This time, he looks after her, assisting her in tying her shoelaces, walks with her, and does everything an ordinary couple does on a date. As a result, she begins to enjoy his company and returns cheerfully. That night, she is at Hyun-tae's restaurant, and seeing her in a good mood, he asks her to spill the gossip. When Yumi reveals that she is having meals with her boss, he suspects that Jin-wook is abusing his powers. However, Hyun-tae doesn't say anything to her because she appears to be happy for the first time in years. The next day, Yumi prepares another lunch for Jin-wook and stays by his side until he finishes it, knowing that he dislikes eating alone. This act of hers truly delights his heart. Jin-wook invites Yumi to dinner after work, but it is too sudden for her, so she declines and asks him to notify her ahead of time so she can adjust her schedule accordingly. On the other hand, Jin-wook's father Lee Min is on the phone with Hairi, whom he considers his future daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, Yumi overhears Jin-wook's conversation with his secretary, during which he states that he is not dating Yumi and that he invited her to dinner solely for business reasons. This finally changes her mind, so she agrees to his dinner proposal. However, Jin-wook has already canceled the reservation, so he brings her to his place. As Yumi is the first guest he has invited to his home, he starts preparing food for her. Shortly after, he asks her to turn off the lights, saying he prefers to eat in dim lighting. However, Yumi is unable to locate the switch, so he steps forward to assist her. The way he approached her makes her think he's about to kiss her, so she closes her eyes, but he just turns off the lights and walks back. Next, Jin-wook lights a candle on the table to add to the romantic atmosphere. He then asks Yumi to help him with the plates, and when she obliges, he unexpectedly kisses her. After this, Jin-wook sits on the table as if nothing happened, but Yumi's senses seem to be flying in the air. Just as they are about to begin the romantic dinner, the doorbell rings. Jin-wook is startled to see his father outside the door, so he quickly asks Yumi to hide. Lee Min appears to be an astute person, and he believes that someone is hiding in the house. His suspicion grows when he hears a sound coming from Jin-wook's bedroom. He then follows the sound, but it turns out to be only a cat. Meanwhile, Yumi is hiding in the closet, where she discovers the same special box. This time she opens it and is shocked to find her bra pad inside it. After Lee Min leaves, Jin-wook rushes to help her out. As usual, she gets nervous hiccups and decides to leave. Jin-wook asks her what's the matter, but she doesn't say anything and leaves. One day, Jin-wook approaches Yumi to inform her of a business trip to their foreign investor's office. He asks her to accompany him and assigns her to be a personal nutritionist for their investor, as he is suffering from diabetes. According to Jin-wook, this would also make a good impression on their business. Elsewhere, Hairi pays a visit to Hyun-tae at his restaurant and invites him to a TV show. In order to persuade him, she shows him numerous positive outcomes, but he flat out refuses her offer. When she returns to her car, she suddenly spots Yumi with her mother and stepbrother, Dong-gu. Hairi immediately calls Jin-wook to inform him about Dong-gu, but he dismisses her. The following day, Jin-wook picks her up for the business trip and the two drive to the same hotel where they have a lot of memories together. Furthermore, he deliberately does many things to remind her of the past. In the midst of all of this, they successfully conclude their business meeting, impressing the investors with their products as well as Yumi's food. After completing all their business work, Jin-wook sends a dress to Yumi's hotel room, asking her to put it on and come to the waiting hall. She follows his instructions and approaches him in the pretty dress, causing him to swoon. Moments later, a waiter accidentally bumps into her and she ends up in Jin-wook's arms, setting up a romantic scene. The waiter apologizes for his error and presents her with a bottle of wine as a compensation gift. That night, Yumi and Jin-wook talk over a glass of wine. This time, she finally admits that she did not want to start a relationship with a one-night stand, which is why she disappeared and kept on avoiding him. Yumi's unexpectedly direct response makes Jin-wook sad. Regardless, he shares how he used to think of her and cherish the memories of the past. On the other hand, Hairi again walks into Hyun-tae's restaurant and begins talking about Yumi. Knowing he has a crush on Yumi, she tries to manipulate him into confessing his feelings for her. After a while, she becomes inebriated and starts crying aloud about her inability to impress Jin-wook. The next day, Jin-wook devises a plan to spend more time with Yumi, so he sends his secretary back to Seoul alone. Following this, he takes Yumi to the pool and instructs her to watch him swim. Yumi inquires as to why she should do so, to which Jin-wook responds that he could get a leg cramp or a heart attack in the water. After swimming for a while, he pulls a prank on her by acting unconscious. Terrified, Yumi jumps into the water, despite her lack of swimming ability, and pulls him out. It doesn't take long for her to confess her true feelings for him and how special she feels for him. Yumi also talks about the bra pad in his special box, which embarrasses Jin-wook and causes him to get up. Fortunately, all of this ends the misunderstandings and brings them closer together. Jin-wook then hands over his special box to her after keeping it for all this time. One thing leads to another, and they end up kissing, finally kickstarting their relationship again. Back in Seoul, Lee Min is furious to learn that his son has abandoned Hairi for an ordinary nutritionist. As a result, he orders his secretary to gather detailed information about Yumi. Yumi still conceals the fact that she lives with her stepbrother, and when Jin-wook invites her to dinner, she makes an excuse about her dog's birthday party. But in reality, it is Dong-gu's birthday. Hearing this, he can't believe she chose a dog over him. The same night, Jin-wook buys a large amount of dog food as a gift and visits Yumi's place, only to discover that it's a little boy's birthday. Perplexed, he inquires about Dong-gu, but Yumi, who does not want him to know about her messy family history, rushes her mother and stepbrother inside a room, leaving Hyun-tae and Jin-wook alone. As expected, the two guys get into an argument due to their feelings towards Yumi. During this verbal brawl, both of them consume a lot of alcohol and pass out. Yumi, who is stuck in between, books a taxi and sends Hyun-tae home while allowing Jin-wook to stay. The next morning, she prepares breakfast for Jin-wook and leaves urgently for a class. A short while later, he awakens to find Yumi's mother Gina, who manipulates him into looking after Dong-gu while she is away. Before he can say anything, Gina walks away, leaving the kid with him. As a result, Jin-wook has no choice but to stay there and care for the child. After spending some boring time at home, he takes Dong-gu to the nearby park where the two start to have fun. Eventually, the other kids join them, and Jin-wook also enjoys his time with them. Unfortunately, Lee Min, who is on his way to Yumi's house, spots Jin-wook in the park, complicating matters even further. In the next scene, Jin-wook returns home with the child and bathes him. A few hours later, Yumi finally arrives and discovers Dong-gu with Jin-wook. She apologizes for the inconvenience and expresses gratitude to him for caring for the child. Before leaving, Jin-wook kisses her, saying it is the least he can offer. Yumi is greatly perplexed by Jin-wook's behavior, and she wishes to know why he decided to take care of the child the entire day. Jin-wook simply says that he likes being with kids. The next day after work, Jin-wook picks up Yumi and drives her to an abandoned area for a private conversation. Outside, Hairi and Hyun-tae notice them leaving and decide to follow them. Once they reach the place, Jin-wook reveals how he missed her over the last 3 years and how he had tried to distract himself by focusing on work. After hearing him, Yumi also reveals that she always feared confronting him because she had never been in such a situation before. In fact, he is her first love. Hairi and Hyun-tae, who are overhearing this from a distance, are heartbroken. In the next scene, as Jin-wook is looking after his cats, he is reminded of his childhood, which makes him sad. Jin-wook recalls how he has grown up without his mother and the affection of his father. After reflecting on this, he promises to take care of his future family and always be there for them. One day, Lee Min pays a surprise visit to the office cafeteria. He appears to be there to speak with Yumi and let her know that he is waiting for the time when Jin-wook will take full responsibility. He also indirectly asks Yumi to refrain from interfering with Jin-wook's career. The scene then shifts to another day in which Jin-wook decides to take Dong-gu along. This is because he wants to practice being a family man. Surprisingly, he gives more priority to the little kid, making Yumi feel like a third wheel. Nonetheless, she is glad to see this positive side of him. In the midst of all of this, Jin-wook tells her to not pay much heed to his father's words. This somewhat relieves Yumi, so she decides to listen to her heart rather than the chairman's warning. One night, she is on her way home when she comes across Hairi, who is crying profusely. Being the innocent girl that she is, Yumi tries to comfort her, but Hairi rudely swats her away. She even offends Yumi by using her mother's profession against her. The next day, Lee Min visits Yumi's place to see Dong-gu, mistaking him for his grandson. Gina forbids him from touching the kid, sparking an argument between the two and further complicating matters between Yumi and Jin-wook. After a while, Gina finally clears up the confusion by revealing that Dong-gu is her son, shocking all of them. When Yumi confirms this, Jin-wook is distraught and wonders what he was doing. This causes Yumi to realize that he was showing her all of that affection just because of the misunderstanding. Elsewhere, Hairi is devastated after being dumped, and she even cries during one of her live broadcasts. This becomes a trending topic on social media and eventually goes viral. The general public as well as Daybook employees begin trolling Yumi in the worst possible way. As a result, she becomes very depressed. One day, she is seen at a park, lost in her own thoughts. Not long after, Hyun-tae arrives to cheer her up. He then takes her to a batting cage so she can release her anger by hitting balls. He also goes on Hairi's television show, where he indirectly expresses his feelings regarding the one-sided love. After the interview, Hyun-tae advises Hairi to enjoy a hot romance rather than unrequited love. After a few depressing days, Yumi wanders around the office reminiscing about the good old days. That night, she meets with Jin-wook for one last time. She musters the courage to admit that she doesn't want to continue the relationship any longer because it will only complicate their lives. Jin-wook, who is afraid of losing her, hugs her tightly and begs her not to leave, but she has made up her mind. She also shares her decision to quit at Daebak and relocate to another city. Yumi walks away after wishing him a final goodbye. Both of them are devastated and tear up as they separate. Following this, Yumi shares her decision to resign with her coworkers, which makes them sad as they have grown attached to her. However, things appear to be so chaotic that no one can force her to stay, so they decide to bid her a fond farewell. On the contrary, Yumi and Jinwook are unable to handle the reality, and neither of them wants to accept the fact that they will no longer be together. But their pain appears to be exacerbated by past memories. Finally, Yumi relocates to a rural area and begins working in a university cafeteria where all the employees are men. Days pass, but the two can't stop thinking about each other. Jinwook even talks to an imaginary Yumi, telling her that he hasn't eaten anything and is starving. One day, Hyuntae pays a visit to Yumi to check on her well-being and how she is adjusting to her new work environment. The best friends are overjoyed to see each other, and after a bit of talking, Hyuntae musters the courage to admit that he has feelings for her. He also mentions that he was a step behind when he realized it. After hearing this, Yumi is stunned for a moment, but she gives him a comforting hug. Coincidentally, Jinwook, who arrives there to see her, spots them hugging, but this time, he lets it be and walks away. Yumi's abandonment dulls Jinwook's life, and his secretary, as before, warns him that if he continues to live this way, he will resign. However, nothing works on him because he can't find any joy in his life without Yumi. One day, Hairi comes to his office with food and expresses her genuine concern for him. Surprisingly, she doesn't beg for his affection this time. Things get even worse when Yumi's mother reveals everything about her daughter and Jinwook on a live television show. She blames Jinwook for dumping her daughter and firing her from the company. Gina's accusatory statement spreads like wildfire on social media, causing even more havoc. In addition, everyone in the cafeteria addresses Yumi as the daughter of an erotic actress and gossips about her, causing her great upset. Unable to tolerate it any longer, she leaves the workplace without informing anyone. Yumi then heads home and blames her mother, claiming it is entirely her fault that she has suffered her whole life. Yumi goes on to say that, being a mother, Gina was only concerned with herself. She never thought of the consequences of her actions on others. At Daebok's group, Jinwook's secretary, who is also his childhood friend, advises him to follow his heart, ignoring all the rumors so that he can reclaim his love. This is enough to persuade Jinwook, so he rushes to Yumi's workplace. However, he is unable to find her there, so he proceeds to Hyuntae's restaurant. Hyuntae, who is aware of the rumors, punches him in the face before he utters a word. Regardless of his anger, he assists Jinwook by providing him a clue about where she might go. Without thinking twice, Jinwook rushes to the specified location, which happens to be the same beach where they had the one-night stand. Meanwhile, Yumi is walking along the beach reminiscing about the past when a woman accidentally splashes water on her. Despite this, the woman walks inside without apologizing. Just then, another generous lady approaches Yumi, apologizes on the other lady's behalf, and invites her inside to share a meal. The generous lady is revealed to be none other than Jinwook's mother. The lady offers her some abalone porridge, which turns out to be so delicious that Yumi can't resist praising it. This reminds her of Jinwook, who always wanted to eat his mother's abalone porridge. On the other hand, Jinwook wanders around the beach in an attempt to locate Yumi, but in vain. After a long failed search, he is about to return, but just then, he spots Yumi, who is running to catch her lucky coin. This scene is reminiscent of the past when a coin served as the key to the reunion. As soon as they meet, they hug each other, forgetting about everything that is going on. Jinwook expresses his confidence in not losing her again, and in wiping away all regrets from her heart. He appears to be overjoyed to be reunited, and looks forward to restarting their relationship. In the next scene, the two go for a romantic walk on the beach while talking about their mothers. According to Jinwook, he was the same age as Donggu when his mother vanished without a trace, and due to this, he felt a connection to Donggu. Yumi also admits to not dating anyone because she didn't want anyone to know about her complicated life history. Instead, she was just enthralled by childish and corny romance novels. After this, the couple has a romantic time at the beach, and the moment they share becomes a pearl. However, the matter remains unresolved because Yumi has different things going on in her head. After spending some quality time together, she helps him rest. When Jinwook is asleep, she appreciates all his efforts and unconditional love for her. Yumi expresses that it all seemed like a dream to her, but now it is time for her to wake up. She decides to call it quits because the relationship will only lead to nothing but pain. Upon whispering this much, Yumi kisses him one last time and walks out of the car, completely disheartened. Following this, she goes to Hyun-tae and tells him of her breakup. When he hears this, all he can do is give her a comforting hug. The scene then shifts to a few days later when we see Jin-wook on a break from work. Having no one else to be with, he gathers his courage to pay a visit to his mother after years. The latter is overjoyed to see her son and prepares his favorite abalone porridge for him. Jin-wook is also overcome with emotion and is unable to keep his tears at bay. A few moments later, his mother informs him that she is aware of Yumi from the news and that she was there earlier. She also suggests he not let her go, saying that Yumi is a pure-hearted and ideal girl. Elsewhere, Gina reappears on the television show, not to cause any more trouble, but to set the record straight and make people realize that it is everyone's right to live their lives as they want. Yumi, who is watching the live broadcast, is glad to see her mother finally standing by her side. Not long after, Hyun-tae walks in and hands his bike key to her, suggesting she go and reclaim her love. Without further ado, Yumi texts Jin-wook to meet at Daebok's group and heads towards the same. Finally, the two meet at the company and exchange tight embraces. They then kiss without regard for their surroundings. The employees, including Yumi's co-workers, appear to be happy for them. As a result, they begin their relationship with a formal announcement to the public. Everything returns back to normal as Yumi resumes her job as a nutritionist at the university cafeteria. And now, she has become a stronger version of herself because she is no longer burdened by other people's judgment. In the next scene, we see Jin-wook enjoying a happy meal with his father after they have reconciled their differences. During this, he also shares thoughts about Yumi's importance in his life, which makes Lee Min realize the depth of their love. Hence, he finally accepts their relationship. Meanwhile, Hae-ri, who is left alone, seeks company from Hyun-tae. During their conversation at a restaurant, he discloses that he will soon be traveling to South America for the launch of his new book, and he is unsure when he will return. Hearing this, Hae-ri is saddened because she doesn't want to let go of her soul companion. She also realizes she has developed feelings for him, so she asks him out on a date. Surprisingly, Hyun-tae not only accepts her proposal, but also invites her to accompany him on his journey. Hae-ri is surprised to hear this, but she happily agrees, thereby beginning a new relationship. After a few days, Yumi's stepfather returns, and Gina decides to throw another wedding party with the same person. This time, Yumi happily attends the party with Jin-wook. However, she is embarrassed when her mother again displays her erotic pictures on the wedding slide. After the ceremony, Jin-wook and Yumi are in their private space confessing their genuine feelings. Jin-wook claims that he will soon announce their marriage and asks her to be prepared to cook for him for the rest of their lives. The confession leads to "I love you," and the drama concludes with a happy ending.